DC and still have lots of relatives in Maryland. I do miss blue crab for sure. So I want everybody to know that. So yes, I am Phil Long. I'm the founder, winemaker and owner of Longevity Wines. I'm going to share with you guys. If anybody wants to jump in and ask questions anytime, or if they want to wait till the end, either way. But I'm gonna share kind of a little introductory video that I've got just to get our feet wet. And don't wait for me to say pour the wines. This is really informal. If you guys got some wine, get in your glass, and we'll go through it and talk about it in just a little bit. Everybody can see that. Thumbs up. Yes. Okay. Great. Longevity Wines is located in the Livermore Valley, which is about an hour east of San Francisco. One of the many reasons that makes the Livermore Valley an ideal place to grow wine grapes is that the valley itself is actually oriented east to west, not north to south. We get warm days and cool coastal breezes every night. Each vintage, all of our grapes are harvested by hand, either at night or early in the morning, to ensure that they get to the cellar cool, if not cold. Every bin and every cluster is sorted by hand so that we know exactly what's going into our wine. Deborah and I started Longevity on a shoestring budget, our strongest asset being our love and passion for wine. We literally began making wine in our garage for fun to producing wine commercially. We've grown from that first vintage of 500 cases to now well over 3,000. We're a small family-owned and operated winery, so we all wear many, many hats. We've grown Longevity into a nationally known brand and have many wines 90 points or higher. Our tasting room is very comfortable and a representation of who Deborah and I are. We hope we can master our traditions today for future generations to enjoy tomorrow. So that gives you a little bit of just a glimpse into who we are and how we got here. And we're going to jump into a little detail here. Chat. Okay, good. I didn't miss anything. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, we're gonna keep going. So again, thank you for having me. We're really honored to be in Montgomery County. So as kind of the video said, we really, we landed in the Livermore Valley back in 2008. Neither Deborah and I had much experience. We didn't have any experience making wine except for in the garage. We didn't come from a winemaking background. It really was something we just did for fun. The cool thing about the Livermore Valley, it was the proximity it was to where we worked. I was still in my corporate job and she was still in her corporate job for years before we made the jump. But we are located in this cool valley along with Concannon and Wente. Stephen Mirasu has his winery there. I mean, this video was made that you just saw some time ago. I think sometime this year will be the third largest brand in the valley at that point. It is one of California's oldest regions. And this is where we started and still are to some extent. Back in 1976, when Napa won the Paris expedition, it was a great thing. It put Napa on the map. And the reason it was so widespread is because we had media back then. Well, actually, Livermore Valley won it back in 1889. Not a whole lot of media going on back then. So we didn't get to be as well known as Napa. But we're still a great little valley. Really, really a great place to be. So a little bit about the background of the label and the story. Deborah, I used to give her glass hearts on Valentine's Day. And everything, this is really poignant now that Valentine's Day is Sunday. Everything about her life became hearts. I mean, heart jewelry, heart clothes, heart rocks on the beach. She just loved and adored hearts and amassed this extremely large collection of hearts. So when we rebranded in 2009, 2010, I designed the heart that's on the label that you see. And if you see it, is actually made up of other hearts, grapevines, and grapes, because it really did truly represent who we are. It was our life at that point. That's what we were wanting to do. That's what we did together. It was totally our life. So I designed that, and that's what's become the iconic logo that is seen really all over the place. And I'll share a little bit of that in a second. Unfortunately, Deborah was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in 2016, and we lost her in January of 2019, but not before I could take her with me and get the entire heart put on my arm. So she knows she's always going to be with me no matter what. She's always going to be part of my journey. She's always going to be part of the story. And she's always going to be 50% of this brand. Yeah, since last March, a lot of things have happened. You know, well, let me just say, yeah, January 2020, I became president of the Association of African American Vintners, which we'll talk about. But the interesting thing, the narrative from the beginning of the year was that, you know, minority wine maker or wine brand, trying to say both at the same time, partners with, you know, mega winemaker Bronco to take his wines nationally. And that really was where the press started in March. And then as the year progressed, you know, we got into COVID. And as the year progressed, we got into Black Lives Matter. Of course, that's the year to become, you know, president of, I didn't mean to do that. I tried to, but there we go. Anyway, long story short, since March of last year, we've had well over 200 million media impressions and counting. It's just been totally insane. Last year, I was also nominated for Wine Enthusiast Wine Star Awards for Social Visionary of the Year. Obviously, we do know some of these periodicals, and these are just some of the highlights. The actual list is about 7 pages long, but the most recent I want to share is just this week we made the O list from Oprah. So And not only did we make the list, we're on the list as the 3 of 24 items on her list, which is just, that's kind of like insane to me, but we're happy. But the press, I mean, it continues. This Tuesday, CNBC is coming out to the winery to do a full feature piece. They'll be there Tuesday, Wednesday. That'll be broadcast on CNBC. After it's broadcast on CNBC, the feature story will be pushed out to every single NBC news station in the country and Asia and Europe. And then Wednesday and Thursday, Reuters will be filming at the winery, and then that will be pushed out worldwide. So there is a lot of momentum and press behind this brand. We're the most probably talked about brand in the country right now. Kind of one of the unique features, and I will say, going back to the other, we are a minority certified brand. We are one of a few minority certified brands in the country that can actually answer a national call. I mean, you can count really the ones on maybe about 3 or 4 fingers. That's all there are that are minority certified that really do distribute nationally on this level. It's interesting, back when we were making 3,000, 3,500 cases at our facility in Livermore, which is what we still do. We produce our reserve wines there, and I produce my mass distributed wines at Bronco. I just go there to make the wines. To make 3,000, 3,500 cases a year at one winery, and then to ship 3,000, 3,500 cases in 1 week at the other, it's been quite the contrast. But a little bit about the cool uniqueness of the closure of these bottles. It uses a closure called the Helix, and the Helix is a joint venture between Amram Cork Company and Owens, Illinois. And if you look inside the bottle, I know you all have the bottles, but if you look inside the bottles, there's very coarse threads inside the bottle. The cork is inserted straight down, but over a 21-day period, that cork actually molds more or less to those threads, and it does allow you to twist it out of the bottle without a corkscrew. And it's 100% recyclable, it's 100% renewable, it's 100% TCA free, and it again, it's kind of revolutionizing the market, and we're one of the few nationally distributed brands on this level that has that closure. Long before Deborah and I partnered with Bronco, and the cool thing was she was around long enough to know that it was happening. She just didn't get to see the end. But in the end, before we partnered with Bronco, never underestimate relationships. All these TV shows, which I'm sure you've heard of 1 or 2, have our wines in the shot. My favorite happens to be Reese Witherspoon on Big Little Lies, because they're all sitting around the table saying how great this Chardonnay is. I can't believe how good this Chardonnay is. And it was our wine, which was really kind of cool. This is just a handful of the shots. All of them are on the website if you want to see. TV Land's Hot in Cleveland, we were on like a couple seasons, almost every show. So it's really an interesting journey. It's just a small piece of the branding puzzle. Now we have a team. I have a publicist. I have a social media team. Thank goodness I've got a great general manager and taste room manager at the winery, which allows me to do things like this and spend time with great people like you. Just a little bit about, we're the largest association of African-American vintners in the country. It's an interesting organization that was started by that gentleman to my right, well, to your left, my right in that photo, Mac McDonald. He started the organization back in 2002 because he said, when I went to events, people didn't look like me. So he started gathering, when he found people together, he gathered, and started the Association of African American Vintners, and I finally met Mac around 2012 or 13. And little did I know he'd be grooming me to take over his spot someday, and that actually has finally come to pass. And last year we grew, due to the climate. I don't want to take. I'm going to say it's more due to the climate than me. We grew over 500%. Um, um, John Legend is a member of AAAV now. We're really growing, and all these brands, you may have seen some. We're adding brands almost every week. The donations were up thousands of percent last year. Now we firmly have our hands on different scholarships to help pave the path for young people of color. With United Negro College Fund, we have the Black Winemaker Scholarship. Sonoma State University, I believe I just saw the press release today, for their wine business program. We have a scholarship, and also Napa Valley Wine Academy. We have scholarships for WSET 1 through 4 for SOM courses. So we're really just, I mean, it's a three-pronged approach. My story is, when I was in college, I had no idea winemaking or this industry was even an option as a career path. None. I thought the guy they called Aggies, they just dealt with animals. I had no idea that's what this was. So it's really trying to create awareness that it is a career path for everyone. And then secondly, once you've identified that it is an opportunity, to create financial opportunities for them to keep pursuing that path. And then three, in general, at one point we were less than 1/10 of 1% of wineries in the U.S., Black-owned wineries, and it's nobody's fault. They don't know. We're just such a small number. So we're trying to create awareness that we actually do exist, and that awareness is definitely growing.
And Phil, we've got a question from Michelle. How did you go about selecting a distributor in Maryland, and any advice you would give new or emerging brands on how to find a win-win partnership in that arena?
So Bronco Wine Company, I'm going to answer the question. It's probably going to be a long-winded one. Sorry. Bronco Wine Company is the fourth largest wine company in the country. They own more vineyard land acres in California than exists in the entire state of Oregon. So their association with the largest distributors in the country, that was really part of the journey in selecting a distributor. The main part, I mean, in all honesty, the brand, everything sort of fell into the right place. We had the two largest distributors in the country actually present and bid on who was going to get to carry longevity, which was actually kind of cool. One had a 62-page presentation, the other had a 78-page presentation on why they should be the ones to carry longevity. So, for us, having the strength of Bronco and the experience of Bronco behind, made a big deal, because one of Bronco's greatest strengths is we can produce consistent wine over and over and over again in virtually any quantity. If you need 100,000 cases this year, we'll give you 100,000 cases. If you need 1 million cases this year, we'll give you 1 million cases. If you need 2 million cases, we'll give you 2 million cases. And it's really it's that programmed and that refined. As far as choosing a distributor, a lot of the things I tell a lot of actually these members on the screen right now is you really have to be honest with your capabilities, your own capabilities, and what you can do and what you can't do. If you're making 500 cases a year, don't look for a distributor, because you're not ready. You're not there yet. You got to be honest with you. If you're making 500 cases a year, you need to really answer the challenge of being more regional, and you'd be much better with a broker than a distributor, helping to grow your wines, and perfect that small area and then grow. You're not going to grow by reaching beyond your means, because it's just not a sustainable way to go about it. So I hope that answers the question. Yes, no, okay. All right. Want to talk about the wines, which is really interesting. So as my style as a winemaker, is it time for talk about the wine, Melissa? Should I do this now, or should I let more questions come in? Okay, all right. My style as a winemaker, I'm always trying to achieve a balance, and every single varietal has its own characteristics of elements that need to be in balance. I mean, Chardonnay, if you look at Chardonnay, you've got characteristics of butter, fruit, oak, acidity, that all have to balance, and not especially oak overpower the fruit. I'm not a fan of stainless Chardonnay. They all have to be in balance. And so the first vintage, which was the 2018, I actually blended in some Viognier to balance out the fruit. The second vintage, I blended in some Pinot Grigio and Sauv Blanc to balance out the oakiness. And both of these wines were awarded 88 points in Wine Enthusiast magazine, both vintages back to back. I will say, if you look at the issue of Wine Enthusiast magazine where the wine is, this particular Chardonnay at whatever, what do you guys sell it for, Melissa? Just out of curiosity, retail.
I'm going to look it up while you are talking.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
$12.99 this month, $14.99.
Yeah, no,
okay. So this Chardonnay received the same point rating as a California appellated wine, as wines that were more specifically appellated areas that cost $42. So this is a huge, huge value. And if you have some in the glass, to me, this is like, I like this Chardonnay just as much as I like the $50 Chardonnays. It's a really, really nice drinking Chardonnay. It's very easy to drink. It's not an oak factory when you open it. The fruit is great. The acidity dances off your tongue, and I really, really enjoy this. So anybody want to comment on the Chardonnay at all? Okay,
I like the 2019 a little bit better than the 2018. I'm probably one of the only people in the room that's had both vintages back to back. I think because the Riesling and the Pinot that you put in there kind of gives it a little more acid in the backbone, which carries the oak tones better. But yeah, it's got that really beautiful bright acidity, and then it's got beautiful fruit, and then it finishes with so much toasty warm oak that really lends some heft to it, that to me, this is screaming, I need to go downstairs and make lobster macaroni and cheese.
well, I couldn't have said it any better.
That was really good, Cheryl.
Moving on to the Cabernet, we were on our second vintage of the Cabernet at this point. It's interesting, again, having this massive spice rack to play with to blend wines. They're at the same price point. So I'm trying to create an approachable Cabernet that has, that's very fruity, that's very smooth, and that a lot of people shy away from Cabernet due to the tannins. I did not want an overly tannic wine, because that's what people don't like. So I really wanted to make something that was easy and approachable to drink. The first time I added in a little R&R Noah, which is a varietal, which is a clone between Merlot and Petit Verdot. And this particular vintage that we're drinking now, I added in a little bit of Ruby Red. And it just all balances out. Again, it's trying to create that balance within the wine that that you just don't necessarily get in a lot of wine. So it's approachable. It's not overly tannic. It's very smooth. And I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl because she says it so much better than I do.
This one definitely falls into the category of a fruit forward Cabernet with lovely dusty cocoa tones to it for me. Like you said, it's not big and weighty, not heavy and tannic. It has no bitter tones to it. So this is my go-to for like pizza night. Goes great with pepperoni pizza. The smoky notes of like pork barbecue. It's a really amazing pairing with. But yeah, it's light enough that it's an everyday drinking cab. It's not going to slide you under the table or weigh you down too much. It's beautiful. Yeah, I think people are going to find it very approachable.
Yeah, the cab is a lot of people's favorite cab at this point, which is really interesting. So I'm really interested to know what you guys think and how it goes. And now you get to see me. Sorry.
No, I was going to say Naomi, she put a little comment in the chat and I'd love to hear. She was talking about the hints of smokiness as well. And feel free to unmute yourself and sort of share your thoughts on the cab.
Or the Chard or both.
I mean, we really like both, but just like that was, I got this little bit of smokiness before I got the fruitiness. And it's interesting because as it sat in my glass and opened up a little bit, I'm appreciating it more and more.
Very
But we
cool.
really like both wines. Like
I'm
I'm going
just
to go
gonna-
back and buy a case.
I'm just going to look at Naomi. I'm going to look back through your window. It looks cold there.
Yeah, it's cold here.
It looks cold.
Hey, Melissa, it's cold. It's freezing. There's snow on the ground. We'd rather be where you are.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be raining sometime today, but it's not that cold, I'm sure.
We get over the ice for sure.
Who else have any questions or comments on any of it? Or, I mean, feel free to ask me anything whatsoever. I'm really approachable, just like the wine. Well, Melissa, this is your world. I'm just living in it. You tell me where we go from here.
Don't worry, I'm just living in it too. But no, you mentioned Valentine's Day and just that importance. Are there any specific, dare I say, chocolate pairings, Valentine's Day pairings that you'd recommend for folks as we turn our attention to Sunday?
Well, I know that I'm going to be cooking butter poached lobster with 45-day-old dry aged bone-in ribeyes. So I'm going to say, guess which two wines I'm serving.
I want to come over for dinner. Sounds good. I think my husband would like that if I took off for Valentine's Day for California.
Yeah, I'm not sure if somebody else would like that either.
Okay.
But that's what I'm doing. You know, and the thing about the wine, because of the label, A is Black History Month, which we all are aware of. B, it's Valentine's Day. We're hoping to come out with a rosé sometime this year, which is going to be a great, hopefully Mother's Day, summertime wine. Then you get into COVID. If we get past COVID, then you get into weddings. There is no better wedding wine on the market than one with a heart on it and says longevity to have on every wedding table at the wedding. So we're going to hopefully kick back into weddings this year. And then you've got the fall holidays, and we're hoping to, by next New Year's, come out with a sparkling for New Year's, which again will morph into the whole wedding idea at some point as well. So that's what I'm doing. Cabernet and chocolate always goes well, period. You can't get by that. But yeah, lobster and chard are they're pretty close together. They're always tied at the hip.
Now I'm not only jealous about the weather, I am now jealous about the food. And I think Naomi, let's see, she had another question. Curious about the Tempranillo that was in the video.
So here's a story. When Deborah and I started producing wine, we really just started producing it with that white label that you see on the bottles you have there. And we found, as we started to sell more wholesale wines, we started competing with ourselves because they were undercutting what we sold it at the tasting room for. So we came out with the black label. So for years, we've been producing what we call the white label, the classic label, and the black label, the Vintner Select label, at our winery. So at our winery now, we only produce black label wine, and the Tempranillo is now in a black label, but we produce a lot of varietals at the winery as reserves. We have Tempranillo, Barbera, we've got a Bordeaux blend, Rhone blend, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Blanc. We do a couple sparklings, Rosé, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cab, but we're out of stock. That's enough. Too many is the word, but yeah. So we produce the reserve wines now at the winery, and they're available on the website. They're just not nationally distributed, or they're not distributed at all. They're basically wine club and tasting room sales and online sales.
That's awesome. And then I will say, Simone, you had your hand up. Feel free, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi. Hello.
Hi, Simone.
I am a reporter actually for the Capital News Service at Maryland, and I wanted to ask you, Phil, as far as what it means to you to be part of this new program, how do you feel about
This, you mean the program, meaning the
the
Bronco?
Amplify? Yes.
Well, listen, it's sort of an interesting story. You know, I grew up in Inglewood, California. I'm just a guy, I didn't even know wine was made in this country when I went to college. So this world is always going to kind of shock me in some way, shape, or form. But how it really happened was a common friend of mine and Mr. Franzia, Steve, we both buy corks from, and he's at my winery one day, and he's looking at the label and he says, "Hey, I think Fred would really like your label." And I honestly looked at him and I said, "Fred who?" I had no idea. He said, "Fred Franzia." I said, "Yeah." I just started laughing. Sure. He says, "Can I take some bottles to him?" I said, "You take him anything you want." That's great. Yeah. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in Fred Franzia's waiting room. He met with Fred. Fred said, "Tell me about him." And the next thing Fred said was, "Get him in here." So I'm, standing in this waiting room, shaking in my boots, obviously. And I look at this picture on the wall. And this picture is kind of a color, late 60s, early 70s picture. And there's all these couples in this one picture. And they have a brass plaque with all the names of the people in the picture. Every single Italian name in the wine industry is in that picture. The Gallos, the Mondavis, the Franzias, the Martinis, the Rossis, the Sagasios, the Parducci. They're all in one photograph. And I thought that was I just started thinking, do I run? Do I stay? And it was so interesting. One of the things, the first meeting Fred said was, "I got 300 brands. What do I need with you?" And I'm like, well, I don't even remember how I answered the question. Long story short, I have become Bronco's poster child, and Cheryl can kind of attest to that. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It's really been insane. And I don't, for you to ask me why, I don't know. I really don't. When I figure it out, I'll let you know. But to become one of Bronco's top brands and R&DC's one of their top 10 brands, that's really, I was just looking for money to buy a new toothbrush. That's all I wanted. So Yeah. So anyway, it's an amazing journey, and I haven't figured out how I got here, but I'm definitely going to enjoy it. And my goal now is obviously to honor Deborah's memory. That's first and foremost, and then secondly to, my son is the assistant winemaker now, and then his two sons they're 4 and 6, getting interested in it. He let Connor taste, the older one, taste a little sip of wine the other night. Oh, it's like Papa's. So they're definitely going to follow through. But yeah, it's actually quite amazing. And I am very aware that this kind of thing, it doesn't happen to anybody, let alone somebody like me. So I'm very, very honored and happy and pleased to be part of the Franzia family now.
And I think just to sort of dovetail, I know Simone had sort of asked about the Amplify Black Voices program. This was just a really timely reason for us to consciously think about the products in our stable. At the end of the day, we want to sell the highest quality wine that's out there, and we realized we were missing one. That happened to be founded and owned, and winemaker happened to be an African American. So those synergies just sort of came together. But I think, as we move forward, this is also a testament to, brands like Longevity and becoming part of, our regular traditional programming every day. And I think that's really how we start to make a difference.
Yeah. And it is, we are, and it's interesting, especially as president of AAAV, when June happened, in June, July, August, there were the bandwagoners that, as president, you kind of weed out the bandwagoners, and you establish long-term relationships with organizations that are really, really wanting a long-term difference in diversity in this industry. And that's what we've done at this point. Wine Enthusiast magazine has been absolutely fantastic. Jean-Charles Boisset, they've been fantastic. There's a lot of organizations that are really, really serious about a long-term commitment to make this change. And we're partnering with them, and we're going to keep moving it forward.
And let's see, that was the perfect.
And,
oh, go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just going back to something else I thought of about this journey that Simone's asking about. I'm still just Phil, but in Sam's Club starting in spring, in I think the B stores, I'm going to be in the B size stores. I'm going to be on the triangle end cap in between Mary J. Blige's wine and E40s. And in the C size stores, I'm going to be in between E40 and Nicki Minaj. Really? Yeah, like I said, when I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Phil, can you speak to your experience and that of others who you've mentored or coached with race in the industry? How has race played a role in, it could be interactions, relationship building, any barriers that you had to overcome? And then really the second part of the question, any advice for new Black-owned brands?
That's like a 10-part question. Let's start with the first. For me, I know I had it probably maybe easier than others. I didn't really run into that many barriers as a Black winemaker. And truth be told, I never set out to be a Black winemaker. I just wanted to make wine. Deborah and I just wanted to make wine. We never really paid attention to it. The bigger barrier for us was that we had no experience in the industry, period. We never made wine before till we started making it in the garage. And initially trying to purchase fruit, a bin at a time was a little difficult because people would laugh at us because we were buying such a little amount. So those were more barriers that just trying to break in the industry in general. I will say where we are in Livermore Valley, there really weren't any racial biases that we ran into. But again, I know that that's not the case for everyone. I get asked a lot, I get asked a couple questions a lot. Like, I want to have your job, and the first thing I ask them is, did they bring their checkbook? Because yeah, we can talk. But the second thing is, seriously, they say, I really want to get to this point. Where did you learn to make wine, and what's the best place to go to learn to make wine? And the first thing I say is, that's not the first thing you should learn. The first thing you should learn is anybody can make wine, but not everybody can sell wine. That's the biggest issue. That is the hardest part in this industry, the competition that's there, the marketing that needs to take place. That's the hardest part of the whole thing, is selling wine. So the as far as an advice for a young Black person trying to get into this, I would say get involved. I mean, join AAAV as a student, learn as much as you can, because there isn't just winemaker or brand opportunities in the industry. There's all sorts of opportunities in this industry. Learn what those opportunities are. Maybe you want to just become a distributor or a salesperson or a som, but learn what all those are before you start going, what should I jump into? Don't jump into anything. Just educate yourself as much as you can. And, if there's somebody that's out there that wants to be a som, we've got som scholarships available. Somebody wants to be a winemaker, we've got Black winemaker scholarships available. So just get involved and learn, and keep your eyes open, and don't hesitate. If you've got wineries in your area and they'll let you come volunteer during harvest, you will learn more as a volunteer doing harvest than you will 2 years in school, for sure. What else we got, Melissa?
Well, I was going to say, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat right this second, but anyone feel free to unmute yourselves. We're very informal here, and ask any questions. But I will say, Phil, I put it in the chat, I could not agree more with what you were saying about the challenge in terms of selling, and that being a typical barrier for folks. So I echo what you said 100%.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, when it comes down to it, what wine, your wine's on the shelf with 100 other wines. What makes people buy that wine? They don't know your black, white, green, red, whatever. They don't know.
True.
They have no idea.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Somebody had something.
Oh,
Yes. Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Well, I just wanted to say, okay, so I've been in this business for about 20 years or so. Yeah, it's good. It's going to get a little bit over 20 years. I don't want to age myself or anything. But the point that Phil was making about understanding the full circle, and getting the education. A lot of people asked me how to break into this business. And depending on where they want to start, I say sometimes the easiest way to start is to work in a wine shop and start learning at that end. Work in a restaurant that's a wine focused restaurant and learn that end. A lot of our people that become distributor sales folks, which are the people that I train, they're pulled from those industries because the experience that they get working with customers and working with a store of 300 wines or a wine list with 300 wines on it is completely invaluable. And then if they decide to take that step towards winemaking, like Phil said, there's a lot more scholarships now that are being geared to minorities. And Delcato Family Vineyards just released information about a new minority wine scholarship. And when you are hooked up with some of these scholarships, not only do you get to go and get funding for some of the best schools like University of California, Davis, Vintner, you also get relationships that will ensure handholding when people graduate with degrees in winemaking, so that they can then go do harvests all over the world. that they can then become apprentice winemakers. They can meet and go to places like Longevity and help with the winemaking, and they move on. And eventually they get there. But all the steps in getting to the top of the industry, that's a lot of work. I mean, I can think back to my younger years, hoofing it around in the back of restaurants looking for the chef and the owner, and I'm stepping in giant puddles of dishwasher water with pieces of broccoli and leftover steak in it, and it's yeah. I'm like, if you think it's all glamorous, it's not all glamorous, but that's how you learn to sell, and that's how you learn to build relationships. And then there's other degrees like wine society education and trust degrees, which give you the kind of more of the scientific and background information in a degree format that allows you to speak and educate on wine. So there's a whole, but as a general rule, you just got to take those baby steps into something and then follow your passion, which is what I did. I loved wine, and I had an English degree. Would you like wine with that?
Yeah,
So
I've got an architectural degree, so you know it's all sorts of backgrounds. I will say Constellation Brands, you know, a couple of years ago, they pledged $100 million over 10 years for women-owned wine and spirits brands to invest in. And they just, I believe, last year pledged another $100 million over 10 years to people of color-owned wine and spirits brands. And it's a program where they invest in your brand, they guide you, they mentor you, they use all of their resources to make you ginormous, and then they offer to buy you out at some point.
Yeah.
So there's got to be the nucleus there. But it's a great program that it's available for those brands that once they do get established. So yes, Michelle. Okay, you got to unmute, girl. Okay, I guess.
Uh-oh.
Michelle, can you hear me? You're not unmuted.
Uh-oh. Michelle, you're muted. We can't hear you. Oh, there she is.
How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, Phil, as a winemaker, do you ever find it weird, or are you surprised or enlightened or discouraged when you go into a retailer or a wine bar or a restaurant that serves your product, and the way they're presenting your product, the way that they're showcasing it, and the way they're delivering it down to the end user that drinks it, you don't have any control over it, right?
Right.
Or if you do, what influence do you have down to that retailer that distributes that wine? You know, so I know it's a multifaceted question, but are you often surprised where, you know, the psalm at that particular restaurant speaks highly of it, or you know, or it's perceived a certain way when it gets down to the consumer?
You know, it's an interesting question. I'm going to have Cheryl chime in. You know, we took this journey of Deborah and I trying to sell to restaurants, and you know, honestly, on the restaurant front, the on-premise front for a small winery like us, there was just as much work in selling one case over a few months as there was to selling one pallet to somebody else. So we just kind of shied away from restaurants for a long time, because I could just as easily sell a pallet to somebody than to sell a case here and there. So we didn't do a lot of on-premise work. But Cheryl, you're going to be much better on answering that than I am.
Yeah, so when I step into restaurants, it depends. One of the things you're having to make sure is that the product that you have in your bag is going to be a good fit price wise, and for the establishment that you're going into. So Phil's Wines, being at a price point where you can run it by the glass at $9 or $10, or if the restaurant wants to squeeze their profit margin, sometimes $8. So that's going to put you in that kind of middle category of restaurants for the most part, or middle to upper category. So targeting your accounts properly is a really big thing. Always we sit down with the restaurant owners and they want to taste everything. And not every restaurant owner is going to like your wine, and you just have to smile and kind of nod and say, I understand, or, they're married to their wine list the way it is, or something like that. But you've got to kind of look to see what they have. You also have to drink a lot of wine as a salesperson, so that you know what you're up against, what it tastes like, what it's up against. I do say that, and marketing is everything too. So a lot of times we're marketing the romance of the label and the heart on the label. And we don't even necessarily start talking about Phil as a certified national minority owned brand and winemaker. But we do eventually get to that story, because the restaurants and the sales staff and the somms, they want to know the wines in depth so they can speak to them in an educated manner. The wines also they have to stand up, and they have to be good. So they have to have some character. They can't be watered, washed out, overpriced wines. There's enough of that on the market. The other thing that I think Phil his wine has an advantage over some others is that he's new on the market. It's not the same old big power broker Gallo-owned winery that's because of incentive money that is shoved down everybody's face, and that they've got millions and millions of dollars to pressure the restaurants and the restaurant chains and the store chains to carry. There's a lot of pay for play going on in the industry that's a little unethical, if you ask me. So it's harder to fight for the smaller winemakers to get them a place on the wine list. And then there's just some restaurants who are really, really receptive. We just started in Hyattsville, Carolina Kitchen has just featured longevity now for the month of February. And Carolina Kitchen is an amazing Black-owned restaurant. They have 4 locations now, and they're testing out the longevity to see if their clientele is going to respond to the story and to respond to the wines. And if they do well, then they'll pop into the DC location. And then if they do well in the DC location, they will be brought into the new Brandywine location that's opening up. And then the other location is carry out, so they're not doing wine. But yeah, it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of legwork, and it's a lot of communication, and it's a lot of sensitivity, and also knowing where the brands are going to fit well.
And the challenge too is picking partners that are really going to support. I mean, she's talking about Carolina Kitchen. Did you send me the pictures? They've got longevity on every single table. They've got little longevity things on every single thing. This is the special this month. You guys should try this. So it's partnering with the people that actually, again, goes back to marketing, that know how to market the product and know what they have to market, which is a key also.
Yeah. But overall, the reason your wines are going to stick and keep growing with us and with the distributor partners that we select is because the wines are good quality, and they're also excellently priced. They're well made, and they have a very pleasing package. So if you can start with all the soups and nuts with the quality ingredients, then that's a recipe for success. But if you're making your fajitas with cheap steak and old vegetables, nobody's going to come back for seconds on that, but people are going to keep coming back for seconds with longevity. So that's a hope anyway.
It better be.
Let me ask, well, anybody else that has any last questions, go ahead and get ready to unmute yourself. But I did want to ask Phil, just getting back to the wine. It sounds like you've got some really cool projects coming up with the rosé, some more sparkling. You have a wide range in your portfolio in terms of varietals. What is your favorite style and why? Do you have one?
Wow.
I know.
That's real interesting. So what's in my fridge? So this is one of my favorite wines that I make. We just call it Pinot Grigio, but we make it in the Italian Ramato style. So it's actually a pink Pinot Grigio. I've been told, it's a funny story. We're pouring Pinot Grigio once at the winery, and this girl comes up to me, "Excuse me, do you work here?" "Yeah, ma'am, I work here." What is this? This is really good." I said, "This Pinot Grigio." She says, "That's not Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio is white. I'm going to go ask somebody who knows." Okay. She came back to me with her head in her hands later. Had no idea who I was, but yeah, I really enjoy that Pinot Grigio. It's bright, it's crisp. Yes, it's pink, and it's one of our great sellers. It's kind of what I'll use the term which made, divulge too much. I like starting with the Pinot Grigio at night. So that's probably my favorite. But every wine, as far as wine making is concerned, every wine has its own challenges. It really, really does. Grape growing has its challenges. You can make wine in about 3 steps. It's horrible. You learn about 10 or 20. You can barely drink it. The 100 steps you learn, that's actually decent, but it's really the 1,000 steps of every wine's journey that defines what the wine is and what the winemaker is that made that wine.
Excellent. And I know we're right at 6 o'clock. Any last questions from folks while we've got Phil?
Michelle's back.
Just one more for you, Phil.
Okay.
I want to talk about food pairing. So I know what you are eating and drinking this weekend, but I want to talk about Chardonnay in particular. A lot of people struggle with food pairings for Chardonnay, and I'm just curious, what do you eat with your Chardonnay?
It's those Chardonnays, whether they're all that present or not, always have I forget the exact chemical name that is the butter flavor, starts with an E. I can't remember it, or an A. But anything that would be buttery is perfect. Anything, and I mean that goes from lobster, shrimp. Anything that would go with butter is going to go with Chardonnay as an easy start for sure. So that's where I would start. You can start leaning into heavier fishes because of the hard Chardonnay is, just a little bit more round than things like Sauv Blancs or Pinot Grigios. But that's exactly where I would start. Which is really, really weird, but it goes exactly with what I said. Popcorn. Believe it or not, it goes well with popcorn. So that's where I would start.
Cool. Thanks.
So
Lobster, chicken, cheese. Yes, pastas with butter sauce, cream sauce. Yes, absolutely. They all work. Thank you, Cheryl.
No blue crab, Phil?
You know what? Blue crab, absolutely. Absolutely, it would go with blue crab. I'm not sure how it's going to go with Old Bay.
Everything goes with Old Bay.
we're going to let you try that, Phil, and let us know.
I'll let you try and let it know. As I recall, what went better with crab and Old Bay was beer, which I don't drink a lot of these days. But that was it. A bushel of crab, beer in the chest, and you don't get up till it's gone.
So that was perfect in terms of bringing it full circle back to the blue crab. I love it. Thank you. Phil, I cannot thank you enough for sharing all of your wine wisdom, your life stories, just sharing a piece of your history and your story with us. That means a lot. And so I know we are virtually raising a toast to you. Cheers and thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's only 3 o'clock here, so I just finished coffee. But thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me. And, you know, I do this with all of these. I really am still just Phil. I'm accessible. If anybody wants to reach out to me and know any more, I'm just phil@longevitywines.com. So check us out on Instagram, the website. You know, my GM says I'm supposed to say that stuff. So anyway, but if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm just phil@longevitywines.com. So thanks again. You guys enjoy your evening, and I really appreciate it. And we'll hope to get out there and have some crab once we get through this little pandemic thing.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, everyone.
Oh.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
She's my backup.